Waratah podcast, they say? No way. Welcome to the Drops Kickoff. I'm back. I've just literally come straight in off training. The season is back underway here in Newcastle. I'm in my Merryweather Greens outfit. I have the beer in hand, and I'm buzzing from a first round of Friday night footy training season to begin. And I'm joined by the usual suspects who last week did an excellent podcast in Nick Hartman's. How far deep into the source did you guys get? Because I think Hartman, you mentioned that you
That was
good. Because I know you guys were drinking a particular beverage that we'll get to at a later point once the approval goes through. But it's I know that you guys had a very very swell evening. Hartman, how did you pull up?
Yeah, no, I was fine. I just forgot about the Yochi completely. Until I asked Nathan, where should I cut the pod? And he's like, oh, yeah, when the Yochi got delivered. And I'm like, yeah. Oh, yeah, I had Yochi.
It's not like 5 or 10 minutes where you just didn't hear. That's just Nick's partner coming home with Yochi. And then, I mean, maybe hey, if we get a Patreon, we can just release it on there. I mean, you have like
the BTS.
Behind the scene. BTS,
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. It was actually a very sweet chat. I did eavesdrop on the whole thing when we cut it out, when we cut it for the YouTube broadcast. And the fact that your partner immediately asked the question, "Who's Bobby V? Oh, is that Bobby V?" And I was like, "Nick, put a ring on that, mate."
She remembered Bobby V's name because I took it to. We were in Melbourne for the Wales game last year, and then the Georgia game. I took a friend to the Georgia game. And she remembered Bobby V's name at the Georgia game. I mean, you know, it helps. He has a ridiculous haircut. Yeah.
Yes, indeed. But we have a lot of news to talk about. I was kind of thinking as we're getting ready for the podcast, I was like, not a huge amount is to report. But then lo and behold, it is Wednesday night when we're recording this, and Wednesday delivered some news. And I think the first key kind of news piece that we should talk about is this TV deal. Nathan, first of all, can we talk about the rollout of this? Can we confirm exactly what is actually confirmed? And then all the other stuff happened, because it felt like there was Sydney Morning Herald was saying something, and Stan was saying something, and then Rugby Australia was saying something. What exactly happened with the TV deal?
Yeah, a little bit of sort of unintended misinformation that sort of got blown a bit out of proportion. But essentially what this deal is a 5-year deal worth up to $240 million. That $240 million figure in itself is, again, I think about 10 to 15 million of that, if my math is correct. And if you know this pod, you know I can't do math, so don't trust that math. Is on incentives. We can't do math. We're not a math pod. Is on incentives of like how the Wallabies, Wallaroos, Super Rugby teams do, and in terms of like bonus and triggers that they can hit. And essentially compared to last deal, it's about an $8 million increase on what it was. So for the 2020, I think the 2020 to 2025 deal that we're currently in. Let's just address the big elephant in the room right now. No, it's not Andrew. The Super Rugby free to air component. No, yes. If you've watched past episodes, you know it. All right. The big thing in this whole argument was Super Rugby Pacific going off free to air TV. That kind of got reported first up, and that was the big thing that people latched to. Now, listening to Phil Wall speak and sort of speaking to other stand people, that is not entirely true. What changed was there's no longer be a fixed time and day for it. So currently we have like a Saturday 7:30. It has to be that game. That one goes on every single week. What it seems like moving forward it'll be is more flexible around like better matches that they can put on. So like, for example, like we've already seen this before, like round 1, Sully debuts the Waratahs against the Highlanders. That week, on a Friday 7:30, that week, that game is on Channel 9, the 9 network. Usually it's the Saturday 7:30 game, which was I think 4th and 1 Pacific off the top of my head. That game got bumped to Stan. Friday 1 moved up to Channel 9 and the 9 network. That's basically my understanding of what the deal will be, is there'll be more chances of that. So, like, for example, I don't want to sort of keep picking on the force here, but I'll pick another game. Next month, when you've got Reds Waratahs on a Friday night, and then you have Force Brumbies on a Saturday night, Now, obviously, again, Force Brumbies could still be a top 4 matchup, but Waratahs Reds being the rivalry under this new deal, the Nine Network could be like, actually, we'd rather broadcast that game on the Friday. Or if they wanted last week to broadcast Chiefs Reds, top of the table, they would have the freedom to do that. So that's basically the main free-to-air component to it. The only question is this going to be every week? And I don't think anyone really answered that. Or is it just going to be for the big games? I'd like to think, given the ratings that they've had in the past, it will be every week. And again, seemed all confidence around speaking to Nine and R8 types that it probably will be. But again, that's the sort of one caveat to this deal that's just sort of got people a little nervous and a bit uneasy. But like, I think it's a good deal. I think like an extra $8 million a year. Like even if there was the be all and end all happens and it's not on free to air anymore, you go, all right, how much is $8 million worth to you per year? When you consider that could be $2 million extra in grassroots, $2 million for the women's game, $2 million $2 million can go to securing the future, like 18 and 19-year-old kids that keep getting pinged out of league on $400 and $500 deals, and to imagine an extra $200 million to try and sign, Noah Alessio's just gone overseas. Lenny Catel's weighing up his options. Having that per year kind of sounds pretty fucking good. So I think that's like the balance. That'd be the balance that's the worst case scenario with no free to air. I think this is as I said, I'll reinforce. I'm pretty confident that Super Rugby will still end up on free to air. It'll just be a bit more flexibility around it. So that's kind of the long and the short of saying. I think this is a positive deal. I think this is a much better deal than what we had, or what we currently are in right now.
Yeah, it's funny that like that kind of makes a bit more sense the way you've described it, because there has been a little bit of like back and forth of exactly how it's going to look, especially because Super Rugby recently, I think it was only earlier this week, they kind of reported how numbers are up across the board. Like the actual broadcast numbers are looking really, really solid in Fiji, Australia, and New Zealand. All notably large increases, and then to suddenly hear that some games might not be on free to air seems a bit like counterproductive, seeing as the game seems to be in a significant upward trajectory. So it kind of makes a bit more sense when you kind of describe it a bit like that. That adding more flexibility to it means that there's more chance of a Reds Waratahs game getting game time, rather than a game that does of a team that doesn't necessarily have the largest audience. And also, I kind of want to ask a little bit more about the whole performance element to it. So, kind of, does it come down to percentage of teams winning? Like, for example, the situation we're seeing right now with the 4 sides entrenched in the top 6. Like, does it come down to titles being won? Is it a percentage? How does it change? Women's game to the men's game, or club divisions to other styles of it. So is there kind of like a specific metric that they have to meet in order to access those extra funds?
I think that's still being held behind closed doors, but I'm assuming it's sort of a percentage. It'd be sort of a percentage of a winning percentage, and then sort of marked to key events as well, like your top 4s at a World Cup, that sort of stuff. Again, don't quote me on that hypotheticals, but that's sort of aligning with what like the strategy document RA put out a couple of months ago, I want to say, or the end of last year. I don't know. Time is we're at the part of the season where time means nothing to me. It could be September, and I wouldn't know. But like it'd probably be linked around those sort of benchmarks that they've set themselves. That'd be my best guess.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Incredibly dry opening,
what do you
boy,
think?
talking about benchmarks and KPIs and shit. Let's get to talking about the TARS.
Yeah. Well, let's get the layman's thoughts on this. Nick, what do you think about
I am not a
broadcast
layman.
deal?
I'm a patrician. I mean, I don't know. Look, it sounds good. I mean, but I haven't seen the contract. Not across the details. I'll never be across the details. No one will be across the details. But the only thing I've got to add is I think that Saturday night. Look, I don't watch either sport, but the NRL, AFL, I don't think they have any free to air on Saturday night.
Not anymore.
So,
now.
Yeah, so you kind of hope that and the Super Rugby scheduling is baffling to me as it is. Maybe it makes sense this year, like for example with the Waratahs, to talk about everyone's favorite topic. They played. They had very upfront. They played a lot of games at home, so maybe it does make sense. But it'd be just great if the Saturday night games were reliably, bangers or very important games or rivalries, or I guess, in as much as you can try to predict it at the start of the season, but, tough games. And not so much, Moana against Force, and like, no offense to other teams, but just probably the two teams with the lowest fan base. On Saturday night. Whatever. Good money, maybe, and maybe the FDA doesn't really matter. The free-to-wear doesn't really matter. If, like Phil Ward was saying on Offsiders, ABC's Offsiders, filmed in the Melbourne studio, where they usually get that Caroline Bint from The Age, who can only talk about AFL, or you get Jared Waitley, who refers everything back to racing. But he was on that show, and I think he said, look, we just want to eliminate the debt. So if in short term they eliminate the debt by going pay TV, and then after that go, all right, we need free to wear, I'd be okay with that. But again, like it's Rugby Australia, it's a need to know basis for everyone.
Yeah, I think that's fair and not a bad way to look at it. The other big news, which is kind of that we're kind of talking about, is a certain organisation, a certain news outlet that shall remain nameless, but long and short of it, dropped an exclusive today on the whole situation around the Wallabies coach, which is that reportedly Rugby Australian chairman, I think it was Phil Ward and Dan Herbert, flew up to Brisbane to have a meeting with the Queensland Reds in regards to figuring out an arrangement in regards to a particular coach who they think is the front runner to become the Wallabies coach. It'll come as no surprise that man is in fact Les Kiss. First of all, lads, what do we think of the whole situation? Nathan, is there anything we can elaborate a bit further on this particular story? And I mean, to be honest, we were kind of talking about it beforehand, and this kind of felt like, we all kind of talked about who we would want to be the coach of the Wallabies or the next person. It kind of felt a little bit inevitable that it eventually would be offered to Les.
I mean, this is just like the worst kept secret out there. Like ever since Joe Schmidt was like, I'm stepping down, everyone's like, oh, so it's gonna be Les Kiss. Like, this is like, I wouldn't be surprised if, again, no knowledge of timings. The Reds have a bye next week. I think I said it on the last pod beforehand. Like, that's the perfect time if it is Kiss to announce it, because you're obviously not going to distract anybody. So, like, I wouldn't be surprised if, with the broadcast out of the way, this gets fast tracked. I think, like, I'd much rather Kiss over Stuart Lancaster. Yeah, he's turned around his club form, but I still can't get out 2015 in my head. I don't want a coach who's has history in a home nation not making it out of group stages. Been there before. I've got the jumper, which I showed off in the last one. I don't want to do that again. I want to coach that. Like, I'm confident it can get me out of the group stages. Give me Les Kiss.
Shared opinion there, Nathan. I think we should all be for coaches improving. But I mean, I wouldn't want to, a POM. Do we need that? I think,
That's the most important.
We're one of 4 nations to win the World Cup, and I think we can expect to have to get someone who's proven themselves. And that was Joe Schmidt. Les Kiss. I think it's good. He hasn't really proven himself, I don't think, in terms of the way Joe Schmidt has, or Eddie Jones had before him, or Michael Checker. But I think it's great to know that there's pathways for coaches now too. You come down here, you show what you got, and you get a shot at the Wallabies jobs. I think that's fantastic. And I'd really want to know who's next off the cub rank to be the Reds coach. I mean, Stephen Larkham, I don't know what Stephen Larkham's thinking, because he was lined up to be the successor. So was Dan McKellar. But Stephen Larkham more so. Don't know what he would be thinking. But
I think he withdrew himself from the race, I believe. I believe he wanted to fulfill his contract through to the Brumbies.
Come on. He's not fucking Obi-Wan. He wanted the Wallabies job.
Of course he did, but I mean, he probably realised that he might not have been the front runner like he'd hoped, and then he was going, well, look, I'll put my chips in this basket here, and I'll stay with the Brumbies because it's an organisation that I know and I've signed up with them.
No, he was definitely like, I want the fucking job. I came back
You
from
know him directly, do you?
Well, I mean, you meet any did I tell you I met Michael Maguire? I mean, this is an indication. Yes. And the way he just looked around the room is like my intense stare. He was just sizing up the room like anyone does as soon as you walk into a room. But it was like the intensity these guys have, Nick. It's unbearable to be around them, to be frank. And to say that he wouldn't want to succeed. I mean, as a coach, you've got to set the standard. You've got to work harder than the players. So, of course, Nick, he wants a fucking job. And who wants to live in Canberra? The Prime Minister doesn't.
Like, he grew up in Canberra. He's used to Canberra.
Yeah, but, you know, he'd get Kirribilli House, whatever's behind it.
Literally born in Canberra. Of course he's going to want to live in Canberra.
Yeah.
And I think I can answer your Red's question, though. I reckon they'll go from within, and it'll be like a Zane Hilton type dude. Apparently, he's the dude that they've he's like Les's second in charge, and I'll just I get pathways promote within.
Yeah.
One point that I didn't know about Lancaster, which is actually a fun fact, he was actually born in Penrith.
That's wow.
It's
not a problem.
It's not hang on. No, I never said that. It's not Penrith, New South Wales.
Oh.
Penrith, Cumberland. Okay, shit, go. Need to be made. Sorry. Cumberland.
Stuart Lancaster, Penrith born and bred.
Yeah, that's it.
I've been near Penrith in Cumbria. I've been to Carlisle. Fun fact.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, Carlisle Castle.
It's one of the first things that comes up actually about Penrith. It is about 17 miles south of Carlisle.
Yeah, and there's actually a pub close to me, and I am doxing myself here, called the Carlisle Castle.
We've been there before, man.
Yeah, we have. Yeah, I got heat stroke. There. That was great.
Too many days drinking. The boys, I'll tell you what, guys. Nathan and Nick, they've gotten around a little bit now that they realise that they live across the road from each other.
Sexually too, but we don't talk about that part.
No, we don't talk about that. Yeah.
BTS. Sex. That's the behind the scenes pod. Yes, it is. Well, that's the big news happening. So stay tuned next week for when we say we told you so, when Les Gibbs gets formally announced as coach during the Reds bye. But the big one, let's talk about Super Rugby Pacific. We've got quite a bit to talk about. It's the halfway point of the season. We hit the halfway point of the season pretty much,
nice.
Which is nuts that it is the case. And it's all Aussie sides still entrenched in the top six. But the question is that can they sustain that? Because there is certainly some question marks around a few of them. And I feel like, unfortunately, as much as I hate to say it, lads, we've got to start with the Waratahs, because it's what the fuck's happened over the since that Brumbies win. Like,
I mean, I think what's happened. It's more about the Brumbies win than the rest. I said this, and I said this last week. To my mate, I was like, the Force not the worst Australian team, and he laughed at me. And yeah, the Waratahs, pumped them in the end, but they just haven't been that good this year. And to think now that like you got the Tane Edmund gear, but Tane Edmund's just been disappeared.
Yeah, I don't get that.
What the fuck is going on? Is that a Scott Fardy checker thing? When Scott Fardy pissed
Tane
off somehow?
Edmund hasn't been playing that good. Everyone's ramped him up. Like I get. But
the team hasn't been playing that well, Nathan. You can't single them out.
Yeah, but everyone is doing the reverse and singling out being, team's not playing well. Oh, because Tane Edmonds not in it. The team wasn't playing well. No. In it.
No, I'm not saying that. I feel like he's barely gotten any game time. That's kind of more my thoughts. I mean, I don't disagree with you that when he's been on the field, he hasn't been firing, but it's like he hasn't really been in the squad that much, because Lawson Crichton's been the starting fly half.
He's also been dealing with injury as well. Like, I think that's why he didn't play Shoot Shield this week or last week. I think it was a groin injury or something like that.
What are you going to say? It's turf toe or some made-up bullshit?
Some mystical injury. No,
confidence.
I asked Devin
confidence is his injury. Lack of confidence. He got turned down at the pub by a beautiful blonde.
We had too many redheads in the team. That was the problem.
Yeah. He's too fiery.
It's different. Him and Callaway, only one can survive. That's it.
Yeah. When you go up against the fire, you can't survive.
But to answer your question, Nick, yeah, just regress to the mean. They haven't been good all year.
Well, no, I feel like that's not necessarily true. I mean, when we were talking a few weeks back, we were all kind of like saying that the Waratahs. I don't think either of you were saying that the Waratahs were back per se, and like it was one of the easiest. It's the easiest start to the season for any team in Super Rugby. But maybe that's just the reality of it. That they had. Yeah, it was.
I thought
by
the Force
far,
had a pretty good ride.
No, you're drunk. They're talking about like the
I'm actually on
had.
the Ryukyu whiskey from Japan. So,
oh, that stuff's so good. But they had 4 of their.
Sorry, that was my cat.
Your cat attacked you.
Yeah, she's a kitten.
Oh my!
She just stuck her claws in my foot for no reason.
Yeah. Well, now I need to see your cat on the podcast as well. Like, I feel like we're getting
sorry, I don't have the laptop. I wish I could get her out.
But I feel like yeah, we've got like 4 of their 5 first games were at home, and I mean they were off to a pretty decent start and got the the roll on pretty well. But the thing that's really kind of surprised me a little bit in the last 2 weeks or so, I mean, the Canes game I can kind of understand a little bit. The side, it was like you guys rightly pointed out that the game went to shit when they lost a couple of players to injury and players were out of position, and the Canes had a bunch of guys coming back. But Moana Pacifica was very different. I feel like the moment that Dan McKellar announced the 7 changes to the side, I thought to myself, oh no, you've gone and done it. Moana is not like, I know that you've got to do squad rotation. I get that that's part of the game, and I get that that's like you need to do that. And if there's a time to do it, now's the time to do it. But Moana is not a bad team. They literally had just beaten the Crusaders in Christchurch. The side was excelling in second half performances. There's clearly a strategy there that is working. I don't think you should underestimate them. And funnily enough, the thing that really surprised me was not that the starting team was that bad against the Moana Pacifica. The bench went to shit. They were non-existent in the second half. When Tupou came on, I didn't even notice he was there. Like, where was he? MIA. The whole front row went MIA. Like, it was a diabolical performance by the bench in the second half, which really cost them the match.
Really is, and this is a problem with. I think it's a constant problem with the Waratah side as well. I think the same issue happened with the Reds. I saw a similar thing in the Brumbies trial as well. Is they just don't know how to stop a team with momentum. Like, that's the problem. When a team gets momentum, they like panic, go away from their game plan, and just resort to one out like bullshit. End up getting caught, and then realize all of a sudden you're on the back foot and can't stop shit. That's the reality of what happened against Moana Pacifica, one of the most dangerous teams when you find yourself in that pattern of play. It's again, they looked really. I wouldn't say really good. They looked good the first 45 minutes. They were up 21-7 at halftime. Like they outplayed them. Like that try Sully set up for Riley's second. It's a beauty. That was unreal. That should be what we're talking about. Instead, it got to the 55-minute mark and everybody just coasted. It got bored with doing their like normal stuff that had won in the game, or put them in a winning position. Moana got a bit of a run on it, and all of a sudden we're unstoppable. Like, I think that's the annoying thing is like there's aspects of a good team because Moana Pacifica looked like, again, the Waratahs made Moana Pacifica for the first 45 minutes look like shit. Look like a shadow of the team that went back, cooked the Crusaders. Yet instantly they went away from that, and then all of a sudden Moana showed why they beat the Crusaders. That's basically what happened. And it leaves you thinking, what the hell is going to happen against a Chiefs side who can create something out of nothing? Like, I don't know. You need to find a response out of this team, and it needs to be soon because their draw for the next 7 to 8 weeks. So we've talked about the easy start, but their draw for the next 7 to 8 weeks is cooked. So I need a response.
What's the draw? Can you read it out?
Sure.
Yeah, you got
Chiefs
it?
this week. Yeah, I got it. Chiefs this week. Then on to Fiji and Drua in Fiji. Bye. Brumbies in Canberra. Reds at home. Crusaders at home. Force in Perth. Blues away.
That's cool.
Brutal. That is cooked. That's Brumby's start to the season cooked.
Yep.
Like not only is
you
there,
always got to bring it back to the Brumbies, don't you?
Well, they are higher than you on the ladder, mate. So it's.
Want to know?
Oh wow! Oh, after we just spent the last 5 minutes talking about how shit the Waratahs are. Good.
Don't make me bring up fantasy results again. I will.
Oh well, actually, let's bring up fantasy. Oh no,
let's not bring up fantasy results. Let's talk about the Waratahs.
I will say this relates.
Fantasy.
This fucking relates. I'll tell you what, because freaking Williamson, I actually thought we were up against each other again this weekend. I was like, I fancy my chances. Williamson had the Moana prop that scored a hat trick. Finishes with 101 points on his own. 101 points on his own, and then 3 of my players, like I think 7 of my 15 had their worst score of the round. 3 of them scored negative points. And I just realized, it's one of those rounds where it's like, it's not meant to be. It's just, this is clearly cooked. But I don't know how the Tars are going to win, like beat the Chiefs this weekend, honest to God, because the Chiefs, even though the Chiefs aren't necessarily like, they're at home, they'll play a better game, and I reckon it'll be a close game, and they'll be in the contest. But if their bench turns up, what's that?
I've got something for you. It's scheduled to rain on Saturday.
Ooh.
And if you watch the Chiefs versus Reds game, which we'll get to, the Chiefs had not to do in the rain. They had to get ref balled to win that game. And
it's
the good thing for the Waratahs is we're already shit.
What the fuck are you talking about? It's 28 and sunny on Friday.
No, you're shitting me.
Look at the radar right now.
I've got Saturday, 12th of April, shower or 2. Bomb.
Great. Perfect. The game's on Friday.
Oh, is it?
Yes.
Look, it's got to rain on Saturday. It's got to rain on Saturday, right?
Yeah, it's rain on Saturday.
Good for the grass. That's what I was trying to say.
It's 29. It's 29 and sunny.
Hey, I'm just saying, you can't trust the weather reports.
Go on,
if it rains, you're a genius.
That's funny.
Yeah,
it's the exclusive report, even before the bomb has it. It's going to rain on Friday.
What are the rains on Friday sports bet?
Dropped kickoff exclusive. We're now routinely we get in trouble for getting the stats and statistics wrong. Now we're getting the weather wrong. We've reached a brand new level of poor form.
Surely you can bet it to rain on Friday. Come on.
Couldn't even get the day of the match right. Where that cooks now. Anyway, on that bombshell,
I'm human.
On that bombshell, I reckon I think it's fair to say, are we all going to tip a Chiefs win here for this one? Or does anyone hold out? Does anyone hold out for a Tars win? Okay, well, there you go. That's the end of that conversation then. Let's pivot to the Reds and talk about that match, because they've got the Brumbies this weekend in Brisbane, and they just came off. I actually thought it was a pretty decent contest in Hamilton, 27-15, going down to the Chiefs on the weekend. To be honest, though, Nath, I actually thought the contest was pretty solid. There was only a couple of key moments that really separated the two teams. It was a pretty solid top of the table clash, in my opinion.
Yeah, the only thing that really went against the Reds was if McLaughlin Phillips holds on to that ball when he breaks 3 or 4 of them with that excellent run and that yellow card. As soon as those 2 moments went against them, the Reds kind of crumbled a little bit and the Chiefs capitalised. Also, the fact they kicked 0 from 3. They were just little 1%ers like that, maybe an extra percent on the yellow card there. But that's all it cost them. And man, look forward to this. This is going to be an epic game. The Reds have been playing some great footy. Brum's off a bye, which they needed. They looked cooked towards the end of that season, towards the end of that mid-season mark. The only thing is Harry Wilson out for the Reds sucks. Fractured arm.
6 weeks. 6 weeks.
I reckon. That's brutal. But still, a lot of class in both those sides. This is a really exciting game with, again, so many good Wallabies matchups.
Yeah, it's a good match. I think this is probably going to be the match of the round. It maybe bar the Auckland derby, the Blues versus Moana Pacific. I reckon that's actually going to be a really interesting game to watch at Eden Park. But yeah, I feel like the Reds on the weekend, it was just a simple case of really tiny, small 1%ers that really proved the difference. The thing that I really liked is that, and it's kind of been, again, a consistent part of the season this year, is that the physicality battle is much more even. Like it was compared to previous, rounds, and it was no longer a case of the Aussie side struggling to keep pace with the Kiwis. It felt like the physicality battle was right up there, and really it just came down to those 1%ers, like you say, that proved the difference. I actually thought McLaughlin Phillips didn't play too badly. Like, I mean, considering you're going away to Hamilton, considering you're playing against the side that made the grand final last year, is currently ranked second, is playing very, very good rugby. He didn't do too badly. I still think he has a lot of work to do to improve, and I don't think he needs a little while before we even get him into the Wallaby conversation. But he's done all right.
I just don't think you can read too much into that game because it was so fucked with rain, and also I think it was so fucked with the yellow card was pretty fucked too.
Yeah,
it was up there. That decision was up there with Ben O'Keefe calling back the Brumbies try against Waratahs.
Oh yeah,
that's just disheartening, random, almost you feel capricious. Yeah. I don't think you can read too much into it, but it was a great contest. I just wish it was dry.
Yeah, it did feel like it was going to break open on a few occasions, but yeah, it was. Those wet weather games, you kind of either get the ones that'll go nuts, or you get the ones where it's just a bit of ref ball, like you said at the start, which kind of felt like that a little bit. But I reckon it'll be a banger this weekend. I mean, obviously the Brumbies are coming off the bye. I think now's probably a good time to mention how the Brumbies are going, and yes, they grabbed the win over the Highlanders. The win over the Highlanders before the bye, and got through by the skin of their teeth, but they were absolutely knackered. And I know that they're really needing a good bye and there's a good opportunity here after this this Reds game for them to really get on a roll, because there's a couple of good potential matchups afterwards. But they want to hit the ground running with this one. I do think that while they won this fixture last year, I feel like the Reds would probably be the favourites, wouldn't you say, Nick?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the Reds really are cut above. Sure, their first 15 is, on par with, let's say, the Brumbies or the Waratahs, but it's really the whole squad system is fantastic. I mean, we've been talking about Harry McLaughlin Phillips, who's behind Tom Liner, or remind me the name of their halfback who's behind
Kalani Thomas.
Yeah, just fantastic, and they're who the bloke playing flanker, obviously not Fraser McCright, but still fucking fantastic. Which I think we were talking about last week again, like we were saying at the start. I can't really remember it, but last week we were just saying that's just missing at the Waratahs. So I just think for that reason, yeah, Reds are a fucking machine.
Yeah, again, and they just keep adding more players as well. Like you get Tim Ryan back this week. Joe Browl, who Nick's referring to, goes to number 8 with Sarah Uru back. It's a quality squad of 30 or 35 that, again, has the legitimate depth to match with anybody. And, again, return back home. I'm with Nick there. I think Reds are deservingly favourites and probably going to be my picked winners.
Yeah. Can I just say as well, so I love Paul Cully's column in the Sydney Morning Herald every Monday. And I clicked on it, I wait for it at work, fucking boring Monday morning at work. And it comes at 11 a.m. And the first comment, and I've actually found it again, the first comment someone left was, why would anyone be interested in signing Edmund when Harry McLaughlin Phillips is forced to play in the bench for the Reds? He's outperformed Liner everywhere this season except off the tee. I'm first comment on an article, red hot.
Shots fired. That is a bold take. That's a bold take.
Yeah. And Edmund's copping a stray. What's he got to do with this comment?
I love it. Yeah, it's just classic Reds making it about a comment about the Tane Airband not getting it, and there's like, nah, let's just pivot and talk about the Reds. And
he must be like Harry's uncle or something. Harry's neighbour's uncle.
Yeah,
it's either a McLaughlin or a Phillips, one of the two.
Tackle the redhead. Bully the redhead. That's what we need to do.
Rang around.
Yeah.
Bully the ranger. You know what Tim Minchin says? Only a ginger can call another ginger. So it's Cully. You're treading on dangerous turf there, mate. You're treading on dangerous turf.
No, Cully. It was a comment.
Oh, it was the commenter. Whoever the
no.
Who's the name of the commenter? Is it someone we know?
Oh, Harry LP. I mean,
it's Harry himself.
No,
the truth comes out.
Saint Germain.
Harry Saint Germain.
No. That's the name of the person who left the comment.
Oh well. But yeah, should be an interesting one to watch. And I think if the real thing that adds the big difference here is that if the Brumbies had played a match this weekend, I would be saying the Reds were going to probably run away with this one, just because they seem a little bit more of the more settled side, because the Brumbies have come off the bye and they've actually had a chance to be rested up. And on top of it, I mean, there's a lot of good players back in there for them. It does add an extra X factor to this game potentially. And God, what an equation it changes if the Brumbies suddenly pull an upset here, because the Reds arguably have been setting the pace this season. So if the Brumbies were able to spring an upset, it would really change the whole dynamic significantly of the top four, and even potentially going forward.
The question for the Brumbies is: are they beating the Blues standard, or are they losing to the Waratahs standard? And this game's going to answer that question.
It's a very good point. You got to try and figure out, because that is the one thing about this Brumbies side is, again, there's been a little bit more inconsistent than past years. So it's all about, as Nick said, which one we're getting on Saturday night.
Agreed. Let's pivot to the final team, who in fact are enjoying a bye this weekend, a well-earned bye, and that is the Western Force, who have actually been on a pretty decent run of form. I think it's probably been one of the most consistent runs of form that I have seen the Force undertake, probably since maybe 2014, when they did their 5 wins in a row on the trot under Michael Foley. I reckon this is the best season they've had since then.
That's a blast from the past.
It was the Honey Badger scoring a hat-trick against the Tars, and I remember that 5-run win on the trot. It was like one of the best moments watching the rugby ever, because when the Force got on a roll, it was like the battler mentality. Look at the little battler go. But lo and behold, the side I think has really turned a corner. Sure, they kind of went down to the Reds by funnily enough the same scoreline that they lost at home at Suncorp, but they put away the Highlanders at home, which was critical. They grabbed a big win over the Fijian Drua, put 50 on them on a really hot afternoon in Fiji, and they've kind of taken advantage of this key period of time during the season where they had a favourable draw, and now they will enjoy the bye off and are still sitting in the top 4, which is in a really good position. Nath, obviously we got to take into consideration that they have the bye this weekend, but where are you? What are your thoughts about where the Force are sitting right now? Is a maiden finals berth in Super Rugby Pacific possible?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they're, 4th right now? What's the gap to the bottom? They're essentially exactly a game above everybody else with a game in hand. So probably going to be about in this round sitting in about 6th or 7th. But I mean, I think the draw ends up pretty good for them. They've got a decent amount of home games left. Obviously, Hurricanes going to be tough the week afterwards, but they've shown enough that if you have a bad day, they will beat you. They will be consistent as all hell with a lot of the players that they've got. And as I mentioned last week, they've just got enough grinders and enough guys that have turned into stars, like Carlo Tizzano's. I know he's injured, but Dylan Peach, Ben Donaldson. Even you're bringing in quality guys like Dolly and Crepney, and Swain, who've just added little bits to the side. It's probably a year or two away from properly being finals contenders, but mate, this team's legit. They've proven enough.
Yeah,
I'm really happy to see them play really well. I think, Simon Cron being there. I mean, one thing they've really suffered from is just turnover, that you can't build that momentum and that cohesion, not in the Ben Darwin sense, but just in the very general sense that you have to meet half the team every year. But it's really good to see them. And I mean, especially you got like Peach and Donaldson who know each other from Wallabies and White as well. And then they've got a sprinkling of guys there who want to prove themselves, like Swain and Champion de Crepinier or Tizzano. It's actually funny. I was just thinking Tizzano because his parents and mum and dad rocked up to a game and Stan showed a thing.
Oh, so cute. That was such a wholesome interview.
Yeah, it was really cute. And his grandpa's like, hey, he's a better nothing boy, whatever. But I think it's just funny. You got Morgan Turinui, and they do the Pacifica names very well, but they go, oh yeah, Tizzano. No one's gone, Tizzano. They really need that, like to give them a bit of respect there, or Champion de Crepinier. Like, come on, give me the full gamut. Get the guy who does the Gabriel Gatte, get him in. The guy who does the Tour de France cooking lessons.
Yeah. Get them go Euro names. Get them go really deep in the pronunciations. Give them the full pronunciation. That's what
when we're playing Argentina, it's Argentina, and it's not Thomas Lavanini. It's Thomas Lavanini.
Look, I like where the Force are sitting right now, and I think, Nathan, you are right. They'll probably drop to 6th or 7th this weekend. I'm sorry, it's so fun. But
I take that as a comment.
It is a comment. I feel like we explored every nook and cranny of it that we could have. But like the Force do have a pretty decent, like a 2-week trip to New Zealand, as well as a trip to Fiji. They do have a lot of, like, I think honestly, Nathan, I personally think they need to win at least one more away game on the road, as well as lockdown. They need to, I mean, you've got some pretty tough cookies at home. I mean, the Hurricanes, I can see them winning that game, and knocking the Hurricanes off in Perth. They've always been a tough ask for the Brumbies. They've got the Waratahs as well, which they should be, favourites for that game at home. But again, last round, they will kind of be the last team that, they won't play in the final round. So they'll kind of be sweating on the results of everyone else. So they need to take all of those home wins. And I reckon they need to get at least that one critical win on the road. Probably either Fiji or the Blues would probably be the matches that you think they would target, right?
Yeah, definitely. You got to try and get at least one of those scalps just to make even if just not make a real statement to say that you're legit. Like they got the Brumbies early in the year, but I think they need one of those big Kiwi teams just to kind of prove their mettle.
I think as well, if they had Harry Johnson Holmes and Tom Hooper,
Harry
Hooper, yeah. If they had them and they hadn't both done the ACLs, whatever they did, it'd be a completely different conversation. I mean, like, you remember when I saw them in Perth, and as soon as the reserve props, just not at the same level.
Yeah, I mean, they've had to grind with a lot. Even Bailey Kunzel out as well, who was one of those players which underrated by a lot of people. But every single time there was a Wallaby squad mentioned, he was unavailable. Like, he was in the group of unavailable for selection. So that probably tells you how high Joe rated him. That he was probably involved in, if not a Wallaby squad, but at least an Australia A squad last year. And he hasn't even taken the field this year.
Yeah, true. There is true. There are a lot of good names in that squad, and there are a lot of good dogs, a lot of good like people who are going to be kind of, I reckon, will be knocking on the door of questions and stuff like that for Joe Schmidt. And it's the right problem to have. It's just really smart recruitment and really smart planning. And fingers crossed. Like, I mean, I know that they've got a few who've committed now for the next couple of years. I think Mick Dolly's committed, Champion de Crepini's committed. But I reckon if they can get as many of those names signed down, like, just Cronny needs just more time with these guys, just more time. That's the key thing that I'm worried about with the Force. In all honesty, the team is good enough. The team is good enough to make finals. The team is good enough to ask questions. They've pulled off some big wins. They can perform at a high level of intensity, and they've just got grit, which kind of is the trademarks of a lot of really good Force teams of the past. They would just, really kind of know how to whittle teams down and play a really ugly style of rugby and know how to win. Just a matter of just keeping them actually in the West. That's the key thing that they need. And I'm quite excited. I think it was kind of Matt was talking a bit with. He said that he kind of routinely keeps in contact with Nick Wyatt, and he said that the mood over there has really changed this year. That there really is kind of a mood towards we're actually building something here, and we're actually seeing the fruits of that investment and labour coming through.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can see the way they're fighting for each other just in those big moments. Like, again, Carlo Tizzano is working that last 5 minutes to somehow run down Tabataba with the game. The game was already decided. Like, they weren't really conserving much outside of a bonus point, but the fight back to make the tackle and also get the breakdown to steal over the next play was awesome. It kind of sums up what's building over there.
Yeah, it is interesting. Let's talk. I reckon let's pivot.
Can I say another comment? I'm going to leave it as a question. Do we know Carlo Tizzano's background? Because look, you've got an Italian surname. There's not many Italians around rugby. And he's from Perth and playing rugby. So, just two demographic oddities. Do we know his background? Is his family actually from Argentina or Italy or?
No, he's legitimately Italian. And his brother, whose name, Cristo, I want to say his brother's name has now signed a deal with Cristiano. Has now signed a deal with Benetton. Again, no free. I can't even give free outs to my own page, but there was actually a push from Italy to cap him in 2021. Yeah, and right. He realized that he wanted to play for Wallabies and turned him down. Right. So Tizzano mentioned they were in contact with him as recently as last year, but turned him down, and the rest is history.
Yeah, okay. It's really interesting. It just WA and not being a Safa or a Kiwi or son of Islanders.
It's a melting pot.
Play rugby.
Yeah, it's a melting pot. They're coming through. It's
angry Italian.
yeah. They're always the best at arguing with the referee. I've actually never watched. Actually, you should. I want to watch for that next time. Watch Italy play. What do you mean? It's what do you say? I'm not running away from the rut.
No, I believe the correct term is "Hey, hey, hey." Why are you doing that?
I just doing the flipping from the chin. All the fans.
It's just the fact that, when he's like, "You're not the captain, you can't speak to me," so he just starts doing the hand gestures at the ref,
and the ref is like, "I don't know if we've met before, but I'm the referee on the field, not you. If I hear you shouting for anything again, I'll go, hey, back at you."
Angry Italian hands back.
Let's pivot quickly before we expose ourselves to any more potential trouble.
It's too late. We're about 40 minutes away.
Yeah. I will say it's probably a good time for us because Nathan has got in his byline, he's acknowledging only one TARS team this week, which sorry to subject you to the wrong TARS team, Nathan, but the TARS team in question is, of course, the TARS Super Rugby Women's side, who have gone through to another grand final, putting 50 on a pretty talented Western Force side at Leichhardt Oval on Sunday. And then subsequently, the Queensland Rains also put 50. Both winning teams scored 54 points, which I think is so funny. In a fascinating game at Ballymore Stadium against the Fijiana Drua, and the Drua came back from 50. Was it 50 to 7 down?
Batshit crazy is the other word I would use. They were down 42. Okay, 42 to 5. The Reds led. I'm watching at home, wasn't covering. Shout out Lockie Gray, he was doing it at the ground. I'm 42-5. I'm like, cool. Game's done. I'm gonna go to Leichhardt and get myself a spot. I turned it back on. It's 47-40, and I'm like, what the fuck? How did you nearly blow that? But yeah, look, despite Nick constantly backing against the Waratahs to make finals, keeps backing the Western Force. The Waratahs are back in the final. That was dominant from them, like 54-17. It was 19-12 at one point, I think, at halftime. And they just came out and just rolled them. So, look, Queensland, New South Wales final. There are so many good matchups that we can get into. But, again, just another New South Wales, Queensland derby match. It's how good.
Yeah, and it's such an interesting one because not only are there so many former Tars players in that Queensland side, but Queensland still haven't beaten the Tars in Super Rugby Women's. In the entire history of the thing, I mean, no one's beaten the Tars apart from Fijiana. So it kind of really gives a sense to it. At some point, the buck has to stop somewhere. Someone has to knock the Tars off. But is it going to be this weekend? I don't know because the Tars have looked pretty goddamn phenomenal for probably the last couple of weeks, since I think they really found their groove at this corresponding match in round 3 where they beat the Reds 36-14. Because they kind of really scraped over the line against the Force the week before, and they look like they've barely put a foot wrong. And the really exciting part is this is all there's a lot of really talented younger talent in that Tars side that is really standing up, which is fantastic if you're talking about depth when it comes to Australian women's rugby, which is fantastic. I mean, I know I was pulling for the Force. I was pulling for a maiden finals appearance, but I mean, there's still a lot of positives to take from the season overall. And I mean, there's going to be plenty of Force players featuring come when Joe Yap names the squad. Let's talk matchups for this final, Nathan. Which ones are you particularly looking at? There's one in question which, funnily enough, played out on between two posts, which saw Charlotte Caslick and Georgina Fredericks talking on the podcast, and Caslick started shit talking her, and Fredericks played a very, very straight bat, which is funny to watch.
Kasich was like, I can't actually. Oh, Kasich's like, oh yeah, Georgina's a Queenslander. She doesn't want New South Wales to win anyway. And Georgina's like, basically, I'm too scared she's gonna get past me. So Charlotte, please don't step me. Please don't go through me. I don't want to get beat by you, please. But the matchup, the big matchups I'm looking forward to. Again, Charlotte is one. She's a freak. She should start at 15. I don't care that there's questions around the kicking. She should start at 15 for the Wallaroos, 100%. Against the person that is the incumbent, Caitlin Halls, the 18-year-old that grew up wanting to be Charlotte Caslick, now goes up against Charlotte Caslick in a final. That's poetry right there. It's perfect.
Yeah.
Other matchups to watch out. I mean, Laurie Kramer stepping to 10 has been very solid, but it's another challenge to do it against Arabella McKenzie. That entire back row has just been decimated with injuries for both sides. So you've now just got a bunch of fresh talent coming into that. You look at for the Waratahs, Piper Duck being out with a shoulder injury. That's concerning, given it's something that she's carried throughout this year, and it's a re-aggravation of that. So again, I want to comment on that. That's such bullshit. Piper is the nicest person. The perfect role model for this game, plays it, goes out and just bashes people on the field, plays the game so hard, and her body just keeps letting her down. It sucks. No one deserves this at their sort of worst. Piper is just one of the best people I've come across in rugby, and it sucks to see that she keeps getting this shit. But ultimately, opens up opportunities. Young gun Ruby Anderson, who I've had higher ups on this entire time, steps in at number 8. For the Reds, you have Zoe Hanna, Mariah Tupai come in with very limited starting experience, but now all of a sudden asked to sort of deliver the difference in a final. So that's the kind of three. And finally, Eva Kapani against the breakout star of this tournament, Flicky Pahiva, who's just been swatting people away with ease.
I love her. She's so good. Just talk about. Yeah.
The best way to describe her is it's like they got into Daisyville. Her and Taniela had a Freaky Friday mash off, and she took all of Taniela's prime powers. She's so good.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Is she eligible? Can we get? Jeez, are we calling? I'm going to call it here. Like, I know I've got one bold prediction that the Waratahs would lose a game this year to an Australian side, which I got wrong. Calling it here. She's gonna be the breakout Wallaroo of 2025. Just calling it.
I completely agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, God, it highlights just with her and bloody Kapani, who is a gun, is still looking really, really good over in Queensland. Looks to have settled in really, really nicely. Just lots of barnstorming props in Australian rugby right now, which is the right sort of issue. I'm really excited by the loose forward battle this particular weekend. I think there's so many exciting prospects. There's so many great loose forwards coming through the ranks, probably in all sides, to be honest. Even the sides that didn't make it, it's the right sort of problem for Joe Yap to have. And I'm going to be doing an article on the Raw tomorrow, kind of talking about the top 5 players in each position that are kind of going to be up for contention when it comes to, Joe Yap picking her first squad. And I'm not going to lie, the depth options for some of some of these positions is pretty insane. Like, there's so many great questions about who's going to be available across the board. The other one on a personal level, I'm really excited for Zero Miller against Savannah Wong on the wing, 11 and 11. That I just think that's going to be such a great clash, because Miller has been on form. She's a try-scoring machine, and she's up against, someone who, is very much has proven and excelled at Wallaroo level, and was the person who scored like 3 tries in that insane 2021 opener against the Black Ferns, and when Australia was leading at half time. So lots on the line there. It's going to be a banger this weekend.
It's going to be great with, again, so much Wallaroo's selection implications on the line. And you talk about sort of breakout stars. I again, maybe you're at this part of the part, I'll give this away as well. I've got spoken to enough people around the Wallaroo's traps as well. I reckon when they name that squad, there'll be a lot of names, not a lot of names, but there'll be enough names that people look up and go, oh, wow, I did not expect them to get picked. Or, oh, wow, good for them. They've been rewarded for Super W form. I think there'll be some serious bolters that come in as a result of just how each sort of every team has risen this year and really put the pressure on those that sort of did the job in WXC2, and those that have just dealt with other injuries or just maybe form. Like, I think you'll have maybe a bit more of an expanded first squad. I think there'll be a lot of uncapped players named in that, if that's my prediction.
Yeah.
But again, knowing my predictions, once again, I famously predicted Quade Cooper would never pull back on a gold jersey for the Wallabies, and he did it like 3 weeks later. So don't trust my shit. I'm a known, and not on the record, but probably soon known on the record dumber. So we'll wait and see. We'll wait and see.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, you've been pretty accurate so far this year, whereas I have not. So it is how it is. I think is a good point here. I mean, we've got in addition, we should kind of also point out, even though we've got the final this weekend, following this is there'll be, after the Super Rugby, there'll also be the end of the Super Rugby or Bicky season. We're going to have the first inaugural champions final between the two sides, which hopefully seems like a good indication of that there's going to be a clear merger of some description down the line. I think now is a really good time to ask just final thoughts and feelings and opinions on this Super Rugby Women's season, because for me, I have thought this has been one of the most hotly contested and best seasons of the competition so far. I think it has reached a real point of high quality competitiveness, similar to Super Rugby Pacific for that matter. And the cold, hard reality is that it's just not long enough at the moment. It's just not long enough. That is the cold, hard reality that faces our female players. And I mean, even though the Brumbies, didn't make finals, bloody good side. Like, even them, they were a bloody good side. Like, less than one score away from beating the Fiji in Fiji, and really made a lot of close games out of it. And they could have had the chance to have mounted a comeback if it was a simple home and away season. But alas, it's not to be. It's still too short a season, it feels like. But in every other factor, it's passing with flying colours.
Yeah, I don't think there's a single person in sort of women's rugby that would be like, no, this is actually enough games, or they're playing too many games. No, like everyone agrees it's got to get more. And it's worth, for context, remembering as well, the Kiwi season's only 7 weeks with 4 teams. It's less than what we're working with right now. I can't say with 100%, but I'm sure that they are working towards having a combined competition next year, or if not, the year afterwards. And this final next Thursday is the kind of the first step in that. So, that's the kind of the main thing I want is no matter what happens out of this game, this final, whoever goes and win has to be competitive in that game next Thursday. It's a must. They must be competitive. Otherwise, it's going to look so bad. Like that's the one thing I get. I'll be comfortable with either team winning. I think either team deserves to win, given how they played the season. Where it's again how the Queensland have gone on a run this start. The Waratahs is the best regular season team, but whoever wins has to go on and be competitive and take it to the Kiwis.
Well, I do think it's likely because I mean, of course it's important to remember. Of course, it was a trial, but it's easy to forget that the Waratahs drew the Blues, who are the current Super Rugby or Bicky champions, in Auckland during a trial. I mean, if there's any indication that there is in growing competitiveness, I mean, the other game they played, I think it was against the Hurricanes Pool, which they lost. But it was a much more competitive game than previous matches and previous results. They got on the board, they asked questions, they threw things out there. I reckon we will see a more competitive final than more might suggest. I don't think it's going to be a 50-7 schlocking. I don't think we're going to see that because inevitably the all that progression and that clear physicality and improvement that's come through, it will rub off, it will grow, and I think it will be shown. But yeah, God, it's a good way to kind of round out the domestic season of like the women's domestic season. And the annoying thing is, it's just it's too short, and they need more. But it's the right sort of problem to have. I reckon that nearly wraps us up for this podcast, lads. Nath, I believe you have one final point to mention.
I do.
Yeah, you do. It involves sevens.
Oh yeah, a lot of discussion around the future of the Seven Circuit, and again, I have ideas. I always have ideas, whether they're good or not. It's not up to the listener. Basically, so for context, there's reports going around that the Seven Circuit will once again decrease in numbers. This time, going from 12 to 8. Basically, rampant costs. Again, overblown costs, and yeah, I can see this as someone who's seen the process. I can see how this happened. I can 100% see how it's happened, and I'll leave it at that. What I would do, what I think needs to happen in heading into the future is let's play more sevens games in rugby strongholds. Like this idea that sevens isn't bringing in new fans and all that, it's ridiculous. It's like an Olympic sport. I've seen the crowds that rock up to sevens events in Perth or Sydney. It is different to the crowds that rock up to 15s where it's Waratahs or Wallabies games, and that difference is about 15 or 20 years younger. Like let's not kid ourselves here. Again, it's a noticeable difference in crowds. But what I think they've struggled with and what has hampered them is going away from, like, you could find the perfect mesh of a rugby supporter, but you're also a young crowd. So, like, why have we not played a series in Ireland where they'd be mad for it? They love their rugby. They'd get behind it. Why have we not gone to Argentina? Yeah. Argentina would be mad. Why aren't we doing that? Instead of focusing on like Asia and like what we have, like Singapore, like you need Hong Kong, but there's Singapore and Dubai. Like, yeah, you probably get good money from it, but put one in Argentina and let them go feral. That'd be mad. I think that's what you're going to do heading forward. Like
put
even
one in Tokyo.
Yeah, even that. If you're going to do an Asian league, put it where they actually want to go and support rugby. Like the reality is, you're not going to get a Singapore national team that's going to be competitive. You're not going to get the Hong Kong, you have to keep it. You're not going to have a Dubai team that's that competitive. Like, put it in England, but don't use Twickenham. Use a different stadium where you can sell out and turn it into an absolute piss event. Like, go to New Zealand, but do it O-Week in Dunedin.
I wonder if they should, because I think that's a weird thing. It's almost like, and I saw it today get described as like a competitor code, you know, and you don't really see like FIFA, for example, doing futsal as well, trying to get futsal in America to promote soccer. So it is a really weird one, and I think as well, what really gets nations together or behind it would be the 15-a-side game. Like Spain won't go nuts for their team doing really well, and they are doing really well. But they'd go nuts if there's, and Spain didn't get the Rugby World Cup if they played really well. That like the potential that Portugal had in the 2023 World Cup. So I really think it's an interesting, place where sevens is at, and especially given that it's an Olympic sport. That maybe should it just be an Olympic year thing, in that year, and you can compete for it, and then you get the 15s players playing sevens.
I think there's different ways you can approach it. Like my argument for is Spain's example is if you want Spain's 15s to be good, what's essentially going to be improving the development of their game more? Having these guys actually being exposed to high-level rugby on an international level, or them just essentially being stuck in the Spanish league with with very limited chance of them getting ID talent-wise and like their pathway stuff. What do you reckon? Do you reckon someone's more likely, or like a top 14 club or a premiership club, is more likely to scout a Spanish dude from the sevens where they can see him kill it, or just some Spanish league where they have no benchmark? They're going to be more likely from sevens. And you look at the women's side of things. That's been a big development. Like a lot of the star players that come from into the 15s games has either spent time or been developed in that sevens games. Like it's a traditional pathway. It's just a case of like get it down to an appropriate size. Get it down to where it's actually like my issue with it's also been is this idea of it's a party, but also there's rugby on the side. It's like either lean into like you got to some extent lean into like how good the athletes are. Like you have Matty Levi pulled off some ridiculous try saver on the weekend. That went viral. It's like, highlight that. Like, the DJs and parties you have is great as well, but it's like at some point no one cares. Like build up the rivalries, build up
or what I would like to see happen is get someone like Fred again, pay him to play at the sevens, and sell it as a gig for Fred again. But you have to go to the sevens to watch it. Like do something weird and different if you're going to do the party aspect. I know.
This is partly why they are broke.
Yeah, I mean,
I know how much
there's
they
that,
spend.
but I'm just saying, if you've got
broke.
marketing budget to spend,
they don't. That's the problem. That's why they're coming back.
Be weird. Oh no, but they have marketing budget to spend. Come on.
Like it's my point is find that balance. Absolutely get those big acts in and make it worth it, but also actually make people give a shit about the rugby on the field.
Yeah.
It's one to watch and keep an eye on, and particularly given that Sevens seems to the quality of the rugby in terms of the Sevens front has been pretty good this year. I mean, especially considering in the case of the Sevens women's side, it's been a very, very young side, but it's still been performing pretty damn well. There's plenty to keep an eye on and get excited about. I reckon that wraps us up for this week. I reckon it's time for us to look ahead and get excited for the next upcoming round. Anything else to add, Nathan? I think we're done. I think we're sorted. Nick?
No, all good.
Excellent.
Yeah, pretty good.
Excellent. Let's call it there. I say goodnight. If you're on YouTube, my dog also says goodnight as well. She's been giving me plenty of cuddles the whole time. She's sooky. She misses mum at the moment. But I'll say a very good night to you all. And enjoy your rugby this weekend. We'll catch you the next time round. Aggressive Italian hands.